殺すならせめておっぱいくらい揉ませてくれたって。
どうせ死ぬなら私が拾ってあげる。
死ぬのかよ。
Sony and Kadokawa have officially released a statement, the news you have all been waiting for. Sony, who owns Crunchyroll, Funimation, Aniplex, and essentially anime, had announced in 2024 plans to buy the owners of Highschool DxD, Kadokawa, who I love very much, by the way. Kadokawa owns so many of my favorite IPs. It is official. Rather than outright buying Kadokawa, they formed an alliance. Sony acquired 12 million shares of Kadokawa, and Kadokawa CEO stated the alliance is expected to further strengthen IP capabilities for global expansion and allow us to deliver IPs around the world. Now, if Kadokawa remains at the helm of creating our favorite series in Japan, rather than Sony just completely taking over, this could be huge because Kadokawa creators could receive more funding, Highschool DxD, Amagi Brilliant Park, Akeno. I just hope this means good news for so many of my favorite creators in Japan. I hope this means more anime, and I hope this means an animation studio will take on DxD Season 5 because Kadokawa has been giving us everything: new DxD figures, shops in Japan, Highschool DxD games, the new series DxD Junior, and with that, of course, so much artwork from the legend Miyama-Zero sensei. Our original Highschool DxD character designer, the genius Miyama-Zero, is still designing new characters 17 years later. They have officially launched the brand new Highschool DxD Junior series with his new characters. Now, I want Ishibumi's series to be animated in its entirety. I love the entire original work, but will DxD Junior be the series that gets a Season 5? You all let me know what you think in the comments. And no matter what, Miyama-Zero sensei is just one of my favorite artists, and so many of my favorite creators are involved here, so let's just wish them all the best. And speaking of, this is Miyama sensei's original Japanese Highschool DxD art book, the guy who came up with Rias, Akeno, Koneko, everyone in the light novel. The art book has been sold out for 10 years now, which is crazy to think about how rare some of these items are becoming. So Miyama sensei goes into detail on these images, giving us little snippets and insights in Japanese that I think you all would be interested to hear about when thinking of the future of our beloved series. I'll inevitably have to censor plenty of these, so Discord link in the description as well. But without further ado, starting off with the cover of Light Novel Volume 1, here's what Miyama sensei has to say. So from Diabolos of the Old School Building, in the first illustration of DxD from Miyama-Zero, he says that it was probably a surprise the main heroine was a more mature, sexy character, more the older sister type, because he had hardly ever drawn a mature heroine before, so it was more of a trial and error process. Also, compared to the more recent Rias, she has a sharp, crooked tooth here and retains some childlike quality. Now, when you turn the front cover of the paperback Volume 1, and this is the first picture you see, which Miyama-Zero says makes it feel like opening a more provocative novel, and that if it makes our hearts excited moving forward, then it was worth drawing. So let me tell you, it was absolutely worth it, Miyama-sensei. Thank you so much for all that you do. It's extra special to me because Junji Goto actually drew this exact image in his own style for the first episode of the anime, and it's cool because I actually own that original anime production artwork. Here, Miyama-sensei says Issei's drawn with kinda a childlike body, even though later he trains up to be muscular. This is a remnant of Miyama's earlier works with Shoto protagonist. Now, Reinari transforms into a bondage angel in this one, which looks more villainous in the anime. He requested the anime character designer and my other favorite person, Junji Goto, come up with several designs for her in the anime, and that was probably Miyama-san's biggest ask for Season 1. On to the Dragon Magazine November 2008 feature. This illustration was meant to coincide with the first volume publication. In original designs, Koneko concepts had gothic Lolita style elements and cosplay attributes, so this is a throwback to that. Although these attributes don't appear much here on out, Miyama-sensei tries to include them whenever he has the chance. When they were looking for the DxD illustrator, one of the requirements was actually drawing cute gothic Lolita style characters. For this 2009 Dragon Magazine piece, it was often used to introduce the Occult Research Club since it features everyone, and Rias' droopy eyes were actually also one of her characteristics early on in the series. Here, Miyama-sensei blatantly talks about his toe fetish. Obviously, Rias' toes split into multiple sections here on purpose, and says it's hard to draw wedding dresses, but usually they're a good theme for illustrations since they have so many flashy details and are very eye-catching, and I have to agree, this one's beautiful. In Highschool DxD, mini outings are also formal events, or the characters are usually wearing school uniforms, so he said the gym tracksuits in the next one are fun to draw and naturally occur less frequently. Miyama-sensei used to work on a series with a magical girl who has a chainsaw, so he said this one brought back some memories. And he said Riser was more of a typical boss he didn't expect to appear frequently in the series, but he's been given a more ferocious look in the anime over the skinny thug-like look of the original since he becomes the final boss of season 1. For May 2009 Dragon Magazine, Miyama-sensei says looking back he can't imagine Rias playing tricks on Asuya anymore like she is here, and some things can only be captured in the moment. So this top one on the right page is a couple illustration featuring Western armor and a warrior style figure. Miyama-sensei says he loves drawing non-human characters as well. And then this familiar on the bottom appears frequently in the anime, but this is about the only time Miyama-sensei has drawn it himself. So Asuya's design is overall quite simple, says Miyama-sensei, but the way her hair is often styled in front of her ears is something he doesn't do very much. So you could say it's a unique design in his repertoire, and in reality it's easier to make the sideburns fold down and hide the outline of her face. Moving on to volume 3, Zenovia's black battle uniform was obviously inspired by a Sukumizu Japanese school swimsuit, and the key point is the low cut leg that's closer to the hips and lower on the thighs. In her left hand she holds Excalibur Destruction, and it was refined to be more aggressive in the anime as a big chunk of blade, which the manga adaptation also follows. So this is really the only time we see her holding this one. And he also says it's also rare to see Kiba in a standalone color illustration like he is here, and wonders if Kiba will make a light novel cover piece one day. We'll have to see. Fingers crossed for you, Kiba. Miyama-sensei says the dress break technique feels very boyish, like something school-age boys would dream about, of course. Also, that Koneko's underwear often have a dotted pattern, which they absolutely do. For this Dragon Magazine September 2009 illustration, he says he never thought that Brazilian swimsuit Rias would actually become the official anime swimsuit and even be made into figures. Akeno on the cover of volume 4 marks the start of summer uniforms, which I just actually reread this one by the way, and Miyama-sensei used to be against exaggerating bust sizes in the past, but after repeatedly working on busty characters and coming to appreciate it, he first sketched Akeno's body with a focus on her chest, so even when she's dressed he wanted to maintain her breast shape and keep the form-fitting shape of her breasts intact. Really important stuff here, guys. For cross-dressing Gasper, Miyama-sensei says that he makes sure his appearance doesn't reach 100% femininity. For this Rias and Akeno piece, Miyama-sensei said you may be wondering about novel restrictions and how much he wants to test the limit. Well, for this very skin-toned color palette piece and his publisher, Miyama-sensei says this was the absolute limit. The armor of the Red Dragon Emperor has a round, smooth silhouette overall, while the White Dragon Emperor has a sharp, pointed silhouette. Both of their armors were originally designed to look more like biological weapons than armor, but after seeing the anime designs, Miyama-sensei thought it was more suited to what Ishibumi wanted and changed them up following that. So Miyama-sensei actually designed these based on the anime, which I thought was very interesting. In our top left image here, Miyama-sensei thought Abe-senpai, the school's tennis club captain, would disappear after one short story, but it seems like they might conveniently show up again in the future. She looks a bit like Ravel, so Miyama-sensei says it could be a bit troublesome to draw her again in the future. Now on to this Dragon Magazine November 2009 piece on one of my favorite Miyama-Zero art pieces of all time. This one of Akeno and Issei. He says that Akeno may have a little bit of an advantage, acting cute and spoiled, because while Rias is slightly taller than Issei, as you can see here, Akeno is actually slightly shorter. In our top right image here, Miyama-sensei says that while the childlike versions of Rias and Asuya are noteworthy, his eyes keep going to the background super robot Maoga, who he would like to draw again. And then on the left, this Akeno is actually a double-page spread that was drawn for Dragon Magazine January 2010, which arrived earlier in the order than the one featured in the previous issue, so it was also a newly drawn piece for the special edition. And then we have this illustration on the bottom featuring Issei in a childlike state being looked down upon by the both of the girls. However, from this angle, Miyama-sensei says he looks less like a child and more like an infant for some reason. On this volume 5 cover page Koneko piece, he says long live light novels where not wearing underwear is allowed, so we can faithfully say Miyama-Zero is on our side regarding, censorship nonsense. Miyama-sensei was free to do as he pleased with Sona, so he said he just went with a flat chest and glasses because he could. 100% success for him, one of his preferences and not something you'd expect from a heroine, he says. Me neither looking at Rias and Akeno, but I guess we gotta have some variety in there, and congratulations to you, Miyama-sensei. Now for this other DD Volume 5 Koneko illustration, Miyama-sensei said that usually when a yokai cat transforms, its tail becomes forked, but because her powers are still developing, Koneko only has one tail and she'll be able to fully express herself with two tails after she matures. After you flip that front cover of Volume 5, you have one of my favorite Akeno pieces ever, and Miyama as well, because he says he's really drawn to heroines with a darker, more mysterious air as Akeno starts to become a yandere in this piece here. Now on the left, this Dragon Magazine March 2010 cover is pretty funny because it's a parody of the movie 300. Also, Miyama-sensei says it's sexist that he's only allowed to draw Issei's bare chest so clearly, but not the girls, so it's pretty messed up. Instead of a sword, Issei is holding a toilet plunger. The good thing about drawing ridiculous pictures like this, he says, is that it's the charm of short stories. On to Azazel, who's getting a bit of a Kakashi-like role. He drew Azazel a bit older than Ishibumi's actual description to emphasize the more adult atmosphere here, plus Miyama-Zero sensei is more of a fan of the bearded old man characters since he's a little older as well. For this Koneko March 2010 Dragon Magazine illustration, Miyama-sensei is showcasing that the girl's Kuo Academy uniform doesn't have a proper skirt, so the blouse is simply buttoned up and loosely wrapped around, sometimes causing it to slip off. To fix this, an inconspicuous snap button was added around the bottom hem of the blouse, which holds the back in place. It's kind of like a handmade cosplay outfit. Now Miyama-sensei cut the back of Zenovia's swimsuit style church battle outfit to expose a little skin and sexy up the cover of DD Volume 6 a bit. Also in Volume 6, Irina's a twin tail and a childhood friend, so in other works she would probably be close to the main heroine. So Irina is slightly in the 1.5 tier role, Miyama-sensei says. Since there weren't any compression short tights girls, he made Irina's attribute one that fits with her energetic personality, and he also said that you can't have her wear panties since that would make it impossible for her to be the main heroine after all. So the tight leggings are a weapon of overlapping 1.5 status, he says. On this one, Miyama-sensei plans to change the sword design closer to the anime, and this is Ophus's first illustration and it's the only close-up of her and the one with a back view of her, so Miyama really hadn't thought about the front of the character at the time, which, you know, ends up being pretty out there. She was definitely thought of as a final boss at the time, so he gave her a villain-like atmosphere with Great Red based on the strongest summoning magic you might see in an RPG. In this top right hand corner illustration, we almost got Asya in her heretical priestess outfit, but there were space constraints, though we did get Zenovia cosplaying a bikini armor warrior and Leviathan as usual. For Dragon Magazine May 2010, we have the brazen cardboard vampire god's heroic figure, Gasper, and then a gorgeous Rias on this Dragon Magazine July 2010 cover on the left. Miyama-sensei saying her breasts look like they'll burst if they're squeezed, and that regarding her wings, this image actually looks a bit more balanced if he omits the wing on the far side, so he often only draws the one side. Also in July 2010, he did this double page spread that looks like a team out of a Sentai superhero series with the 5 of them, dividing the characters either more by vivid colors or realistic ones. He's got the flashy blues and pinks in his own style, and they're really incorporated to match the characteristics of each girl, he says. You may notice a lot of open space on the left side of this one, so since this unusual relaxed loungewear Rias needed more room for the article and flow of text that it was featured in, Miyama-san left a lot of open space. Same here, a rare depiction of Akeno and Asya interacting, which you don't see too often, and this actually might be one of the first illustrations of Akeno as a shrine maiden. Zenovia's Durandal in this one was inspired by Gundam, and Miyama-sensei wanted Koneko in Chinese clothes with some more cosplay attributes. On this Birdman one, he associates with Kurama from Magical Hero Wataru, if you know that series. Miyama-sensei comments that Issei is a great main protagonist who can make weird faces, and he absolutely is. For September 2010, we have the trio, Asya in a one piece and Irina dressed up with the cross and wings to give off that angel motif. On the Volume 7 cover, Miyama-sensei gave us angel wings as a fresh idea since they're usually devil wings, and he says energetic characters often have dynamic poses like jumping or leaning, so when they appear on the covers or other prominent materials, they usually look visually striking. The Volume 7 intro features my favorite ship on a date, followed by two suspicious looking girls. Miyama-sensei says with her hair down, she looks 50% less like Akeno, and he can totally feel how strong the ponytail influences her. And on the other hand, maybe it would have been interesting if he drew Rias and Issei in ponytails as they chase her in disguise. I can totally see where he's coming from too, because I remember like 10 years ago thinking this could possibly be Reynarde. Also, it would have been so cute to see Rias in a ponytail. Hopefully we see that one in the future. Now on this sexy piece, Issei's finally looking a little more muscular and trained here, and Miyama-sensei said he absolutely wants to point out that Issei's right hand is definitely going inside Rias' panties. Bless you, Miyama-sensei, bless you. For Dragon Mag 2010, Miyama says Kiba can't be showcased as a pinup on the cover, but he takes center stage in the opening illustration. Asia's Neko Nyan swimsuit is adorably cute, and he'd love to see her dancing in it. Doesn't she wear this in one of the anime endings? You guys let me know in the comments. It's actually Gasper being carried in this middle illustration, if you must know, and Azazel's hair in the original work was simply described as black, but since he's a strong character, Miyama-sensei wanted to give him a more distinctive look, so he's designed his bangs to be white. However, the idea of them being white was just for convenience in the black and white illustrations, as he didn't get the chance to show the color in the color versions. So when Azazel appeared in the anime during season 2, Miyama-sensei finally had to settle on a color. So for the limited edition cover of volume 13, when designing Akeno's Fallen Angel mode, he chose black and gold as the color scheme for high-ranking Fallen Angels. Thus, Azazel's bangs finally became blonde or gold. On to January 2011, I personally love Graphia's design when she's removed her maid uniform, love the flashy hairstyle change, and Miyama-sensei says this large scarf could be used as a weapon, like Lisa from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Volume 8 is the first time in a while we've had multiple characters on the cover, and this Rias is Miyama-sensei's personal favorite in terms of balance, going as far as to use this illustration on his own personal business card. This is also the first time we're actually seeing Asia's winter sleeveless sweater vest as well. Now the gym uniforms have remained the same since the Showa era bloomers. Perhaps the student council is receiving requests from the girls to switch to shorts, but Miyama-sensei imagines it would be difficult for Sona to bring it up to a Demon King, so maybe as part of the negotiation to establish a rating game school in the demon world, the price for approval was keeping the bloomers. Team Akeno all day, this is one of my favorite pieces, and Miyama-sensei says her nipples are at the absolute limit of what is acceptable, so please enjoy, he says. Another favorite of mine, for the inside title page of Volume 8, Miyama says he might have went a little too far with Rias' breasts on this one, but I'm gonna hard disagree. He made sure to put Issei's hands in a subtly lewd position as always, and give the image of an overall mature and sexy atmosphere, and those are really my favorite ones that Miyama-sensei does. Mission accomplished, Miyama-sensei, this one's absolutely beautiful. Also in January 2011, we have Rasuise's nurse uniform. The sleeves are designed in a way that overlaps with the summer blouse of the school uniform, but he thinks the decision to make it a one-piece miniskirt was a good choice, and I definitely agree. Phoenix, once again, Riser is fortunate to have so many illustration opportunities, says Miyama-sensei. He really likes her thick eyebrows in this image as well, so if a pure Japanese-style heroine appears in the future, thick eyebrows could be a possibility. Miyama-san also says he's trying to increase the number of handsome guys in DD, and this might actually be our first Mikkel and Surzek's illustration. On our Volume 9 cover, Miyama-san says that Rasuise in full gear seems like a character from a different work here. In the main story, she doesn't fight with weapons, but when she became a Valkyrie, she was provided with an entire set of official equipment, including a spear, sword, and bow. She doesn't actively use them, but she does have them as equipment since they're Nordic mythological weapons. Probably have runes carved into them as well to enhance magical effects. And Miyama-sensei had me in tears on this Volume 9 inner piece because he said that this is just the typical closet on a school trip he's read about in manga with Zenobia and Irina, but he doesn't know anything about the real thing. Also, the rare only scene where Irina has her hair down. Now we are really getting to some of Miyama-sensei's most legendary pieces, and here he specifically says, "Yononaka ni wa oppai o shoukan shitara yobi dasareru heroine ga iru rashii desu," meaning, it seems there are heroines who can be summoned by calling out the word boobs. A humorous and exaggerated reference to the fan service elements in DD, of course. Miyama-san says Rias' bust size is set at 99 centimeters, which was chosen to be large but not too large by the standards of the silver-haired characters, and that a bust size over 100 centimeters would feel too unrealistic or too exaggerated for the main heroine. As for best girl Akeno Himejima, Miyama-san sets her bust size to 102 centimeters, which is larger than Rias's, so take that, Rias. I'm always Team Akeno. There's also an extremely dire, life-changing, important point about Akeno being 4 centimeters shorter than Rias, so the difference in bust size would likely translate to Akeno being 2 cup sizes larger in terms of bra size. Very important stuff here, guys. Seriously, life-changing. Miyama-sensei closes the passage with a mention of Akeno's fallen angel blood being the reason for her more exaggerated bust size. Again, more very important information. And this is a reference, of course, to Akeno's seductive heritage. So the local wife of Kyoto here on the left actually was the third character ahead of Issei and Koneko to be made into a figurine after, of course, Rias and Akeno, showing that she must have a pretty strong fan base in Japan, and that if a sculptor has a dedicated enough fan base, it can definitely lead to unexpected successes. You'll notice in this piece that Rias actually has long strands of hair on both sides that wrap around to the front. It's a feature of our crimson-haired beauty that's true to the original work, but Miyama-san says it's not often reproduced in manga, anime, or figures. Now from July 2011, we have a special illustration drawn for the first season of the anime, a character introduction with all of the early day heroines lined up, and this composition was actually used in the second season of the anime. Now I'm fairly certain that this Rias was also used for the Oppai boost box, one of which we unboxed a while ago on the channel. An interesting point about this one is that Miyama-sensei says from this point forward, gradation and highlights start to appear in Rias's hair. Not only is his design slowly changing and being influenced by trends and other artists, but his coloring methods are as well, and I would really love to know some of the artists that he's being influenced by. For this July 2011 special feature, Irina is wearing her battle outfit for the first time, the same design of Zenovia's, but with the legging additions around her thighs and the bare shoulders. Miyama-sensei says he wants to draw Zenovia with long hair, or maybe in 2 years her hair will just have grown much longer and he'll have to draw it. So in this piece on the right, light and dark actually isn't the only contrast between Ophis and Razuise, but Ophis's hair also splits in two at the back while Razuise's remains long and straight. And Miyama-san says that at this point, Koneko's eyes have become a bit more slanted, but at first they were a little more droopy. It's really a matter of preference, but Miyama-sensei says slanted is easier for him to draw, though he has to be careful to stay on design when it comes to Akeno and Asuya, so they aren't really overly influenced by this. For the legendary Volume 10 cover, Rias is drawn in a more serious light in order to match Ishibumi's story, but some people said she looks a little too old here, and that makes Miyama-sensei regret making her look too young previously. Constantly struggling between her cuteness as a heroine and maturity as an older sister, Miyama-sensei specifically says, "Gakuensai no Ryan Hatto kaba shiriasu na naiyo ni awasete, anyui na Riasu o kaita no desu ga, chotto fukete miru to no ikken mo ari. So basically, for the cover of the Lion Heart of the School Festival, he drew an Inui like Rias to match the serious tone of the content, but he received feedback that she looked a bit older than intended, which made him realize the difficulty of balancing it. The word Inui here is borrowed from French, meaning a feeling of listlessness or dissatisfaction, often associated with boredom or melancholy. In this context, it describes a more emotionally distant Rias or serious expression for Rias. Miyama-sensei reflects on the difficulty of finding the right balance between Rias's two key qualities, her cuteness as a heroine and her maturity as an older sister. He often feels conflicted about how to depict these traits without one overpowering the other, and I would love to talk with him more about that because it's really amazing. You know, there are so many different versions of Rias, you can tell that they look different, but this serious one is just so absolutely beautiful, and I think he did an amazing job with it. I honestly absolutely love this version of Rias, and it's maybe one of my favorite pieces ever. So if I ever meet Miyama-sensei, I'll absolutely be sure to let him know. While I'm not personally the biggest Ravel fan, she was initially not part of the main heroine group, but gained popularity in Japan and eventually achieved the status of a secondary heroine. Early plot versions had her joining the group much earlier, but since that was changed, she reclaimed her position in the end. The waist ornament Ravel wears is an homage to the Phoenix family, and this reference has become a widely recognized feature of that. On to more stuff I probably can't show. What is there to say other than how beautiful this piece is? Miyama-sensei wants to point out that Issei's hands are always doing good work, and this time Issei's hands are firmly gripping Rias's thighs, pulling them towards him, which is why we love our MC so much we stan. Saito Org's design is often compared to Saint Seiya here, but actually based on a Buddhist statue and more closely associated with the Legend of Heavenly Sphere Shirato anime, if you know that one. Miyama-sensei jokes that he could probably be called Lion King Saito Org. Miyama-sensei also thinks Zenovia looks great in sexy outfits, even under challenging conditions, and even though she has a masculine fighting style, it obviously contrasts with her appearance that he praises for how well the intricate corset complements her bust and how well that hat suits her. He elaborately gave her a bustier design here. Thank you, Miyama-sensei. And this image was also used for an official DxD playmat. Now, this first illustration on the left-hand page in the top right was used in Deluxe Volume 1 and is technically the first illustration of Biko, even though he's disguised as Rias. And Miyama-sensei points out that Rias's casual expression here is actually pretty rare. He also says it's a shame that the mermaid only appears occasionally in this left image, and that in the next drawing he forgot one of Kuroko's tails, since it's really easy to forget about cat-related things. No worries, Miyama-sensei, I don't think anyone's noticing. She also is pretty short and slender compared to the tall woman of DxD, meaning that even though Akeno and Rias have larger bust sizes, Kuroko probably has the largest cup size due to the difference in her underbust. Miyama-sensei really giving us the information we need to live a full life. Miyama-sensei says that in the anime, Sona's breasts were drawn larger, but this is her true combat ability. Things like her cooking being almost murderous or her tendency to be easily deceived, Miyama-sensei says these flaws have actually made her even more charming. And this risky illustration is the first time we get to see Ophis from the front, whose back has only been shown until now. Miyama-sensei didn't think she would show up like this or that he would get correction requests, which leaves him wondering about her original design. Also, the little dragon is drawn just for fun. There isn't really any reason in particular, as some fans have speculated. One of my favorite Kuroka illustrations, which I also have the official playmat of, and this time she correctly has two tails. Miyama-sensei says she isn't wearing any underwear though, so if you look from behind, her tails are absolutely flipping up her kimono, and you'll see everything. Also, she's barefoot here, but she usually wears geta, and hopefully he gives us that back illustration. One day. For this Dragon magazine Rias, Miyama-sensei says his eyes are obviously drawn to her puffed up chest, which is tightly fitting, but what he finds most fetishistic is of course Rias being barefoot. Oh, Miyama-sensei. And as for the coloring, he recently has noticed that the hair and clothing are becoming tinted orange. In the world of Beautiful Girl illustrations, he says it seems like the trend of incorporating diffuse reflection light into the skin started around this time that he drew Rias, and this trend increases the transparency and richness of the skin tones, making them appear more vivid and lifelike. The effect also adds to the overall appeal of the work, making it look more polished. However, Miyama-sensei says such trends are temporary, so there might come a time when people stop using this technique altogether. Regardless, this illustration was definitely beautiful and very popular. Miyama-sensei specifically says Koneko no Hatsujo Modo, directly translating to kitten in heat mode, and he notes that the hand with the tail wrapped around it is actually mirrored incorrectly. The left and the right were flipped in drawing, but he forgot to correct it after flipping the image. He implies that this kind of thing happens often among illustrators, and again, Miyama-san, I don't think people are noticing. It's absolutely beautiful. And finally, onto this volume 12 piece, one of my favorites of Akeno ever. Miyama-sensei says that she's become an empty shell after what happened to Issei, and he expresses that this melancholic, vulnerable portrayal of her is more impactful than when she's depicted in a more upbeat state, which she often is. However, he also humorously points out that while this mood is effective, having only such dark or sorrowful depictions of her would be problematic, and I absolutely agree. You know, for a one-time thing, this image is just so beautiful though. Next up, a more lively picture of Rias, since Miyama-sensei says there were just so many of her in submissive poses, and maybe it would have been better if her hair was a little longer, but I think it's absolutely beautiful the way it is, and I also had the official framed art piece of this Rias. Miyama-sensei decided it would be easier to understand Asia's gear if it had something visible, so that's why we see her rings in this one. He also included the trademark X on Ophis's camisole in the picture on the right, and then the vice president design on the left was actually done for the anime first, and Miyama-sensei never thought she would wear glasses, so he ended up happy because he's part of the glasses committee. And this piece on the bottom here was done Three Kingdom style, and he says he doesn't think there's much demand, but he left the midriff exposed. On to my favorite here, the regular edition Dazzling Smile Akeno on the top versus the limited edition Dark Smile one on the bottom, and Miyama-sensei points out it's not just any old micro bikini, but a more luxurious Fallen Angel style one, and I have to agree, seriously, one of my favorite art pieces in history. This one probably really got me into High School DxD. And we got the Kiba trap. Miyama-sensei tells us it's not just his appearance, but personality that makes him more feminine as well. Apparently, Miyama-sensei would like to see him in a girl's uniform too, lol. Here we have the DxD Issei SOS front piece of Milicast, Irina, and Zenobia. Another amazing Rias for Dragon Magazine 2012, and I also have the official framed art piece of this one as well. Miyama-sensei says it's a strange apron outfit, but he wanted to draw her in shorts and naturally moved the devil wings that originally grew from her waist to match the ones in the anime. Regardless, I just think it's so pretty. Top left one, he says Irina and Zenobia are such fun to draw because their expressions change so much. And then on the bottom one, Miyama-sensei says Sister Griselda is a precious angel and will most likely have more screen time in the future, and she's drawn looking down on Zenobia to make sure her presence looks bigger. Trust me, I would love to see that. Give us a season 5. Speaking of hot spring table tennis, says Miyama-Zero, Zenobia's slips through her yukata are must-see glimpses both on the top and the bottom, and Azazel looks a little younger and more handsome in this top image here. For Dragon Magazine 2013, we have some Graphia fan service, and we also saw some of this in the anime, and even though it's blurred, Miyama-sensei says the thrill is the wonder of whether or not she has any hair down there, and since he's fully drawn Akeno, and we know, I wholeheartedly agree, pretty sure she does, and Miyama-sensei needs to, let us know. Ravel has finally made it to the cover page, and Miyama-sensei has made a point of telling us the bag strap running in between her breasts is absolutely symbolic. And if you were to look at this image from behind, she's definitely not wearing anything. Lafay Pendragon on the inner cover with a flashy design very similar to Asia's and some bright colors. And then for this stunningly beautiful Akeno piece, which I also own the official frame for, Miyama-Zero sensei attempted a super exaggerated cute expression that he hasn't done before, and he ended up really liking it, so he's probably also the only one that noticed he drew Issei's sacred gear on the wrong arm. I mean, I would have been pretty distracted too, seriously, one of my favorite art pieces. On the right, we have a rare Kuno and Ophis in school uniforms drawing. Miyama-sensei also talks about here how the anime's success led to even more designs that can now make it into the original work, and that is just so awesome. That is a huge reason I want more seasons of the anime. This is the first time we're seeing Seraphol in full color, and Miyama-sensei decided to match season 2. To me, it's just so cool to see instances like this where he must have been working with the anime character designer Junji Goto-san, and they ultimately decided to change her scheme to pink and reflect her witch-like nature. This is the Sona Volume 15 limited edition cover here on the bottom, looking cute and embarrassed as if she's forced to wear this outfit. And Miyama-sensei mentions that the design of her chest is different from her sister's because of the obvious variation in their bust sizes. Next up we have Loli Akeno, and while the illustration shows her smiling innocently, the fate that awaits her is of course very tragic, as a lot of us know. Here, Miyama-sensei says Kadokawa has no intention of hiding anything, and to top it all off, her kimono is just barely hanging on by her nipples. Miyama-san says it's probably the power of the demon cat. Also, Ravel is supposed to be older here, but she's drawn much younger to match Koneko. Lafay looks a little more mature here. This is a flashback illustration of Rias wearing a coat like Mattel from Galaxy Express 999 when she first meets Kiba, which I love because I just bought the Galaxy Express movies and I'm super excited to watch through. Miyama-sensei also says even though Rias is only in middle school at the time, she already has a large bust. Of course she does. Now this on the left is the Dragon Magazine 2013 cover, and even though the covers are subject to strict regulations, since they can clearly be seen in stores, the transparency of Rias' shirt was still approved in Japan. Let's go Japan. Additionally, it's common for the ties on the cover models to be removed, of course to reveal their busts. Koneko's outfit here is a reference to Miyama-sensei's other work, The Ambition of Oda Nobuna, and the bottom image is a muscle festival disguised as a mascot festival. Then here on the left, Gasper has a cover page. We have a trio of monsters with pale complexions for cover 16. Pinio is influenced by a Gundam Death Scythe, and this is the illustration for Rias' mouse pad on the left from the boost box. And since there obviously were constraints, her face is as close as possible to her chest for the mouse pad. This is also an illustration for the boost box pillow cover of Akeno, and by coincidence, it looks like a continuation of the Akeno on the following page to the left right here. I mean, you can tell what Miyama-sensei means. The left page is actually for the Blu-ray and DVD jackets. This Rias was made for the back cover of one of the DVD releases, so he didn't have any constraints, as you may or may not see. Discord link in the description. It's also influenced by the Wizardry RPGs, in that he wanted her to pose like a succubus as a parody of the game. It is so cool to see the original image this Rias is based on. That's just so awesome. And of course, for this Akeno, Miyama-sensei says her chest wasn't the only star here. The traditional Japanese fundoshi cloth, which could only be shown on the back cover, may be a niche interest, but there are probably plenty of enthusiasts. Her bust is conveniently Asya-like here on the bottom, and Miyama-sensei wants us to notice how nice the length of her church skirt is, since it usually isn't visible. He says it feels more like lingerie than actual lingerie, and I can definitely see where he's coming from. Here on the top left, Miyama-sensei says he never expected to see a married woman's bust make an appearance, but he thinks the largeness and slight sag gives her an adult charm, and I absolutely agree. Miyama-sensei also says Koneko is trying to push them together to make them bigger in a cute way. In this one, she's showcasing her cosplay attributes too, now dressed in a new design costume that has a little magician vibe to it. And lastly, the Volume 6 jacket displays disparity in breast sizes. The request was specifically for Rias, but he really wanted to draw the president, who we know he loves, in a way where he could pair up their chest. And he says the loss of modesty by the Gremory household members is refreshingly new, and I fully agree. And we're pretty much coming to the end on this art book. Of course, Miyama has some original designs left. He also has an afterword as well, and I highly encourage you to read that to find this art book. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. Thank you all so much for watching. I would appreciate it so much if you all drop a like on this video, subscribe, let's support Miyama-Zero in the comments so he gets to work on more DxD and more light novels, and let's hope for another season of the anime. I personally cannot wait, and I absolutely want to watch another season of DxD with every single one of you. See you in the next one.